Every tree has a place where it belongs, a spot where it will thrive, not just survive. And the land will tell us where those places are if we listen. Most people plant trees by reading lists. We've all done it. You Google top 5 native trees and you plant those. Done it myself. But that approach can actually lead to dead trees and a failed woodland. There is a better way. The land is alive and it's always talking to us, but usually we're just moving too fast to hear it. I'd like to show you how by slowing down and looking closely, the land will tell us what belongs and what doesn't. For example, have a look at this row of trees behind me. They are all beech trees and they are all the same age. Some are thriving and some are not. These trees are tall and healthy and these are stunted and barely clinging on. You can also see there's a slope on the canopy of these trees. What's causing it? I mean, they're all growing in the same field, they have the same climate, the same sun occasionally, and the same rain. So why are they growing so differently? The answer is the soil and the wind. Let's take a closer look. These rather stunted beech trees are growing in a low area where the water pools when it rains, and being Cumbria, that's rather frequently. We've got angelica growing here and watermint, which are indicators that this is very wet ground. Now, beech trees don't like having their feet wet, and that is why they're not doing very well. These taller beech trees that I showed you a moment ago that are doing very well are growing here on this slight ridge, which gets them above the wet soil down there where all these rushes are growing. Also, these plants here are wild blueberry and they only grow on very dry ground. So these beech trees are happy about that. So by reading the vegetation and the health of the trees, you can learn a lot about the land. And the slope to the canopy, that's caused by the wind. Trees that get hit by a lot of wind tend to grow small, so they stay hunkered down by the ground for protection. But that small tree will provide a bit of protection for the tree behind it, so that tree can grow a little bit higher, and the tree behind it does the same thing, and so on. So you wind up with that slope shape. Now, I've seen some trees on very windy coastlines that grow almost entirely horizontally. You know, most of us live in our minds. We don't pay attention to now very often, but by slowing down and being present in the moment, feeling the wind and the earth beneath us, paying attention to what's actually going on around us, we can see what actually is here. And one of the most important things you can see is the vegetation that's growing on the land. You can actually read the ground conditions from the plants that are naturally growing there. This plant is called soft rush. Now, farmers don't like it because almost nothing can eat it, so it's terrible for grazing. But it's not just a plant, it's a messenger. And it's telling me that this land is really, really wet. In fact, saturated for most of the year. Let's dig in and have a closer look. Have a look at this soil. It's really interesting. It's called clay. That's like clay, but with a G. Now it has this slight blue tinge to it and these red marks in it. Now both of those are caused by iron. Over time, the iron in the soil loses its oxygen because this soil is so waterlogged. Now very occasionally it does dry out a bit and some oxygen gets back in and rusts the iron that's there. So it's really fascinating, but the smell of it is really awful. It smells like the bottom of a swamp. Now, this is the smell of life without oxygen. The land is holding its breath. Now, most plants require air around their roots. They actually breathe through their roots. So it takes a very special kind of plant to live in these conditions, and rushes and willows love it. And what's really interesting is that if you take a piece of glazed soil and dry it out, despite its main feature being that it's soaking wet, but being dry actually shows up the blue coloration and the rust marks even more clearly. This field is about 5 hectares in size. That's about 12 acres. Now, just to look at it, it'd be easy to assume that the growing conditions across the whole field are roughly the same, but that's just not the case. This field is a mosaic of soil types and microclimates. Sometimes move 10 paces and everything changes. This field is not a blank canvas. It has edges and moods and memories. Right, we've come about 10 meters up the field and conditions are really starting to change. There are still some rushes, so the ground will still be heavy and damp, but we now have plants like this. This is creeping buttercup. We have grasses. These are plants that need to have some oxygen around their roots in order to survive. So they're telling us a lot about what's going on in the ground. Now, sadly, some Scots pines got planted down there in the glazed soil. Their roots couldn't handle it and they slowly died. But here, you can see this Scots pine is looking really, really healthy. So let's dig a hole in the soil and double check what's going on. Now this soil is quite different from the clay I showed you a moment ago. It is still heavy and sticky, but it doesn't smell like the bottom of a swamp. It doesn't have a blue tinge to it, and there's no lines of red rust in it. Also, there's earthworms in it. All these things let me know that the soil here does dry out, enough oxygen can get in to allow all these plants and this Scots pine to thrive. I want to take you to the top of the field 100 meters or so away to see some completely different growing conditions. But before we go, I'd like to say a big thank you to our Patreons. Your support helps make videos like this possible. Now, if you'd like to join up as well, you can head on over to Patreon. I'll leave a link in the description below. We've got some amusing videos there, some outtakes from our previous filming, as well as I'll put your name at the end of the next video as a big thank you. You can also choose to join the YouTube membership. There's a join button down there somewhere. Oh, and don't forget to click subscribe on your way. I'd really appreciate that. Let's go have a look at the top of this field. Right, so here we are at the top of the field. Now the conditions here are completely different. Reading the vegetation, what do we see? Or more to the point, what do we not see? Rushes. There's few, if any, rushes up here. Instead, we have loads of grasses and these things, which are meadow buttercup. Look very similar to the creeping buttercup we saw a moment ago, but they grow in a far more upright habit, and the leaves are far more finely cut, which looks really nice. Now, this vegetation tells us that this ground won't be saturated. These plants can get in their roots into the ground and the roots can breathe. They'll not be suffocated, so they outcompete the rushes. It's a perfect place to grow oak trees. They also don't like having their feet in the water. Now, this oak tree is doing particularly well. You can see the change in the color of the bark. This is last year's growth here. That's this year's growth. It's got about 30 centimeters or a foot of growth on it already, and it's only July, so we can hope to get a bit more from it. So let's dig into the ground and double check what the conditions are like here. So this soil is this nice brown color, no blue soil or streaks of rust in it. It is light and crumbly. That allows the oxygen to get in so the roots of the plants can breathe, and it smells just like fresh earth, perfect for oak trees to thrive. The final soil type I want to show you today is this stuff, clay, with a C this time. It is bluey, orangey, incredibly sticky stuff. Now, the traditional way to test the clay content of your soil is to make a long ribbon like so and see how long a ribbon you can have before it snaps. I think this counts as clay. Of course, you could make a pinch pot as well, like I've done here. Now, clay is water impermeable, meaning water doesn't flow through it. So by rights, this ground should be soaking wet. But it isn't. The reason is because the land has a memory. I'm not saying that the land has a mind like we do, but it is alive, and it has a past, and that past affects the present. Have a look at this. It's coal. I found it in our field just over there, and it speaks to the history of this land. Now, coal was formed about 300 million years ago from the enormous ancestors of this stuff, mare's tail. It all got compressed down over millions of years, and then in the last ice age, those coal beds got scraped along with everything else into the huge jumble we have beneath our feet. It's why our fields are so variable. Our land also sits on top of limestone in some places. Now, this is an old lime kiln we have on our land. It was used to burn limestone into quicklime for use on the farm. The limestone is made from the shells of creatures that lived here millions of years ago. Now, limestone can dissolve over time, creating limestone caverns, but sometimes those caverns collapse, creating sinkholes like this. There is another memory here on our land. Deep beneath our feet are these. They are clay drains or pipes buried in the ground by farmers years ago. Now, this one is from our field, likely 100 or so years ago. Now, you can see on the edge of it, there's some remnants of lime mortar, very likely from our lime kiln I showed you just a few minutes ago. You know, on a snowy day, you can still see the ridges where the trenches were dug to put these in. Now, lots of these still work all across our land, and it's why the clay soil I showed you earlier hasn't caused the ground to become completely saturated. The drains are altering the conditions of the field. Now, not all of the drains still work. Some of them have failed. Like here, where I showed you the glazed soil, the drains here have failed and they no longer carry the water away. The water backs up and the soil's now becomes saturated, returning it to how it was before people drained it. Now, we could replace the drains, but we've decided not to, partly because it suits our firewood growing interests. Willow loves saturated soil, but it also means that we're then working with the land, not against it. There's value in that. Now there are some areas we've purposefully left unplanted because the land is telling us that trees don't belong there. Let's go see. We've left this area unplanted. There are loads of wildflowers here that just would not survive in a woodland. They need to see the sun, like this meadowsweet, it's this white flower, or this purple flower next to it, which is called hedge woundwort. People used to use the leaves to stop bleeding. They'd crush them up and push them against their wounds. They've got antiseptic properties. Now, you can see over there, we've only started the trees where the wildflowers end. That's the right place for the trees. This is another area that we're not going to plant up with trees, and the reason is because of this blue flower. It is called devil's bit scabious. Strange name, but very nice flower. It is rare across the UK, but it grows wild here. Now it supports another rarity, which is a pearl-bordered fritillary butterfly. And if we planted this area with trees, this flower just wouldn't survive here. So sometimes the best tree planting decision you can make is to not plant them at all. Now there's another area where we're not going to plant trees for an equally important reason, which is that we need somewhere to go sledging. So to tell what trees will thrive on your patch of the earth, you already have the right tools with you, your eyes, your nose, your hands. Have a look around you. What plants are already thriving? What does the soil feel like? What does it smell like? Is it swampy or is it fresh? Are there rushes going? Every piece of land has a story to tell. It has memories, and we can read them if we slow down enough to pay attention to what's in front of us. When we stop trying to impose our will on the land and instead listen to what the land is already telling us, everything gets easier. We waste less time, lose fewer trees, and build something that belongs. So the next time you're out in your garden or on your land, just pause for a moment. Look at what's growing. Feel the wind. The land isn't silent. It just speaks in quiet ways, if we slow down enough to listen.